Hi, everybody. This is the Filmmaker's Life, and welcome. My name is Joanne Butcher. My business is called Filmmaker Success, and that's what I'm interested in, is seeing filmmakers become successful. And I believe that filmmakers are the most creative and hardworking people, and yet they often find themselves spinning their wheels. So this podcast is designed to show filmmakers how to move forward no matter what, why, or how long they've been stuck. And we do that by interviewing filmmakers who are definitely not stuck and are moving forward with their filmmaking careers. And when I first started this podcast, I started it because it was COVID and I could actually pin down my producer friends who were not on set and not flying around the world. And so I started out by interviewing my friends, and then I started interviewing other producers. And now I'm going through a fabulous phase of interviewing my own clients. And so it's really fun for me to reconnect and to see how everything is going and what they've been up to. So this week, you are going to have the pleasure of meeting Deborah Richards, Debbie Richards. And Debbie just told me that we've now known each other for 3 years, going into our 4th year. And I just saw Debbie in Miami, and that was super fun. We were at NatP, and Debbie was showing her film there, but we'll get to that. So Debbie, welcome. This is so interesting that you are outdoors. Now, why are you outdoors? Can you tell everybody?
Sure, I'm at a secret, undisclosed location in the middle of the desert, somewhere between Idaho and Las Vegas. I'm on a writing retreat. I have no phone, no car, and internet for 2 hours. This is the first time I've heard my voice in 3 days. I come out here. This is my 3rd time in 10 years to this specific place. I come here to get out of Vegas and get away from the world. And my life is just full of distractions. And to write, I need to turn off all distractions. So I get dropped off here by my producer. He takes my phone, and then he comes to pick me up in, a few days. And this is actually the first time I've heard my own voice in 3 days. So even this is very people.
This is fantastic. So basically, you have constructed a writer's retreat for yourself. And often when I've seen writers' retreats, they're all about, you're going to go to this place and it's some fancy house and some fancy place and you get your meals delivered and all of that. It seems to me that you've sort of gone all the way the opposite. Is that right?
Oh, entirely. I think it's so Ponzi to go, oh, I'm going to go to Tuscany and I'm going to be inspired by the fields and I'm going to do my writing of my midlife crisis romantic. It's so silly. It's like, look, people that go to Tuscany on writing retreats go there to be inspired by the beauty. And my argument is, I'm going on 53 years old. I've had a lifetime of seeing beauty. I don't need to be inspired by the world. I need to turn off the world so I can get to the job of working. I find that as a writer, it's so hard to write. It's so easy to come up with an excuse not to write. It's so easy to say, oh, you know what? Let me see what's in the fridge. Oh, you know what? Let me just turn on the TV for 10 minutes. All these distractions, right? And so the only way I can force myself to write is to come to a place that isn't particularly pleasant. I don't want the owners of this establishment to hear that, but I don't want to go to a place that's particularly luxurious or pleasant because I want to stay, like when I'm writing, I'm in the story world. I can smell the smells, I can touch, I can feel the surfaces, I can hear the people. I'm in that world, okay? And the moment that I snap out of it, I'm back in the real world and I'm like, oh no, I'm here. Okay, let me go back in the story world because there's nothing to distract me from pulling me out of it. So that's why I do this. It's pretty extreme. This is the 3rd time I've done it. I go a little loopy when I do it because I am isolating, but here we are.
I think it's just as brilliant an idea as all your ideas, Debbie. And I just think it's absolutely great. And I think all human beings at this point in our civilization, you know, when you take away their phone and their internet, everybody probably would go a little bit loopy. But at least you have the goal of writing a screenplay. Are you writing a new screenplay, or are you
No,
working
I'm doing
on?
yeah,
I'm
I'm
sorry.
putting the finishing touches. I'm putting the finishing touches on my next movie, which is called
Yes,
Scissor Mouth. I
yes.
came I came here a year ago to write it, and now I'm literally doing the final kind of, you know, this next movie is um potentially a $2.5 million project. And when you think of movies in terms of multi-million dollar movies, you're essentially constructing a multi-million dollar business, and the screenplay is the business plan. So it has to be so airtight, so rock solid in order for us to have the confidence to say, you know what, let's take these 85 pages and make a multi-million dollar business out of it.
I love it. I love it. So I'm going to go back to the beginning, which is what I always like to do on these calls. But we had to explain why you were outside and all of that because there's only one Wi-Fi in this one motel, one gas station town. And so my first question always is, when did you first know you were a filmmaker?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I started making films, like little short things, like in around maybe 81. I used to get
Were you
fixed
already an
models. They're not
adult?
called FX in America. I can't remember what they're
Oh yeah,
called, but
no,
the little
oh, I'm sorry, we're having a little
chop.
delay. I keep talking
Yeah,
over you. About what age were you in 81 then? Were you a kid or were you an adult? I can't do math.
yeah. No, no, no. I'm not that old. I was 9 or
Nine
10,
or 10.
and
Okay. I
yeah,
can't do math.
and I get the toy models, and I would rebuild them. You know, kit smashing, what they call that, kit bashing. And I would I remember I'd make spaceships. And then back then the VHS cameras that were huge would have like a nighttime mode where you flip a switch and it all looks like infrared. So I would shoot like that, and I'd have a little piece of thread to the spaceship, and I'd slowly land it down onto a piece of foam, you know, for the moon. And there'd be some talcum powder, so when it hits, it was a little puff. And I was doing that and making Muppets, like toy Muppets out of balloons and clothing and stuff. I was already doing that at like 10 years old, and I had video camera and I was filming stuff. Actually, this is a funny story. I don't think I've ever told this on an interview. Um, Roughly when Indiana Jones came out and the Temple of Doom, somewhere around that in my early teens, my friend and I, we wanted to try filming blowing up a car because we thought that'd be spectacular. So we got this little toy car and we put it on a bench outside, and we put some gasoline on it and we lit it and we put the camera there and we're watching it, and it's just, you know, it's just burning, it's not blowing up. So my friend's like, pour some more gasoline on it. So I get the can, I go to pour the gasoline, the fire goes whoop straight up the stream. I throw the can, it lands on the shed catches fire. His grandmother comes running out the house with a bowl of water she's sprinkling on the shed, and we burnt the shed down. So that was me like age 12, 13. So I guess I've always been, you know, playing around with.
Oh my God, what a great story, Debbie. What a great story. Thank goodness you were all right. That's just the most dangerous thing.
My my face caught fire when the thing happened, but I hit the ground so fast that it just put it out straight away. But for a second I saw through red.
Wow. And was the camera rolling?
Yeah, but only on the stupid little car.
Right. What a story. Oh my goodness. I totally see that now as a scene in a movie. That has to be a scene in one of your movies. It's so good.
Well, I've got
It's so
a million of those, and
good.
that's why I grew up being a story, because I have a million stories in me, and like everyone does, I'm just the kind of person that likes to try and bring them to life.
Yeah, I don't think everyone has a million stories in them, actually.
I'd be surprised.
Yeah, yeah. But I think that what I see with my clients is that they do have a million stories in them, but I don't think everybody does. But it's great that you're bringing them to life. So that was when you were 9. And you said about Airfix, because I grew up with Airfix. So were you in England?
Yeah.
You grew up there?
Yeah. Yeah. I think so the first 10 years of my life, I lived in the Middle East
Oh,
in Bahrain off the coast of Saudi Arabia. But we had a house in England, so every school vacation we would go to England. And then around the age of 10, I stayed in England for the schooling. And so it's a little hazy, fuzzy. Was I in England? Was I in Bahrain? I know I got my
uh-huh.
first camera in Bahrain, but I
uh,
was, going back and forth at that age.
fascinating. A very international person. So
Yeah, this is
when
the fifth country I've lived in.
yeah, and then so when did you make your next moves in terms of your filmmaking, storytelling? Did you go to college for film? Did you study?
Yeah, so I was kind of making, little things my whole life without thinking of it in terms of, oh, I'm a filmmaker. I never considered I
Hmm,
was a filmmaker.
hmm,
Never, I never thought Hollywood was an option. Like I said, I grew up in the Middle East. Hollywood was a place on TV. It wasn't a reality in any shape or form. It never even occurred to me. So I was making things my whole life. I was, designing flyers using Photoshop 3. I was building websites in 1988 when the web started, not the internet, the web. Um,
hmm.
so I was playing with pixels and creativity and creating things. And, I was a musician, I was in a band. So I was doing all these things. Skip forward decades. I'm living in Vegas. I own a bar in Vegas. And we didn't have the money to do marketing. So I had to figure out how to do the TV ads. And so I started directing our own ads for TV.
Uh-huh.
And I started doing all the photos for the menu and all this kind of stuff. And it was roughly around this time that a friend of mine said, "Hey, have you thought about film school?" And so I went to the College of Southern Nevada about 12 years ago. And while I was in film school, I wrote a short called Boy Meets Girl, and it won 4 Southwest Production Emmys in the student category. In 2013, I won Best Short, Best Director, Best Screenplay, and Best Editing, and that launched my career.
Oh, that's so interesting. Because I think a lot of people make short films and they think it's going to launch their careers, but it doesn't. What do you think made that film so special?
Um, it was really ambitious. I mean, it was just a little class project, and I set it in zero gravity. So right off the jump, it was, way more ambitious than what other kids were doing at film school. They were shooting in the desert or in a white stucco home, and I was building spaceship sets and figuring out how to do a fake zero gravity and shave this kid's head and eyebrow, and it was just very extra, and so it stood out.
It's a beautiful film, by the way. Also, it's
Oh,
it's
thank
a
you.
really beautiful film. Is that a film that people can see somewhere? Is it available anywhere?
I believe so. If you go to so my production company is called 1905 Films. It's called 1905 after the year Vegas was founded. And if you go to 1905 Films on YouTube, there's a bunch of stuff there. I believe it's there.
Yeah, it
But if
really is
not,
a
and it's somewhere on the internet.
it really is a beautiful film. Very, very, very beautiful film. And I think that the fact that you won the Emmys just, if I think it's a great thing for people to see. If people can see that film and see what is a film that rises above, that really separates
Well, I think,
itself from. Go ahead.
thank you. I think the other thing that got it some acclaim was that I only made it for $300. So that got a lot of attention,
That's
because
nice.
it looks like it was made for a lot more.
Yes, definitely, definitely. And it's so fun to have heard the story about the Airfix spaceships and your 9-year-old filmmaking, and then that, because I didn't know that part when I saw the short. But that's really
Uh,
lovely that the 9-year-old is getting expressed in your short film.
I still feel like I'm expressing the child in me. It's all the things that, that someone recently asked me how do you find your voice as a filmmaker? What's your voice? right? And I thought long
Mm.
and hard about it, and I've come to this conclusion. I believe a filmmaker's voice is where their taste and their humor intersect.
That's interesting. I don't think of humor as being a general thing. You think it is?
Well, your taste is, well, yeah, your taste is what you like, and your humor is what you laugh at, which isn't necessarily what you like. So there's that
Uh-huh.
clash of, hey, I think this looks good. Hey, I know this is bad, but that's funny. Boom. We got something.
I love it. I love it. So you graduated from film school. You'd already won some Emmys. What did you
No,
do
I never
next?
graduate. I didn't graduate.
Oh,
That's the
you
thing.
didn't. Oh,
No, because after I won the Emmys, I was like, that's it. I've got Emmys. What do I need film school for? I'm off to Hollywood. So I went to Hollywood and I knocked on the door and they opened these beautiful Hollywood doors. And I'm like, oh, excuse me, Deborah Richards, Emmys. And they're like, sorry, Hollywood's full today. Come back later. And they closed the doors. And so I went back home with my ego bruised, thinking, what the hell? I just dropped out of film school. I've got Emmys. Why aren't I making my first feature? And it took about 10 years after that until I had the opportunity to make my first feature. And so in those 10 years, I basically did what we call sharpening the saw. I
mhm.
directed, I've now directed over 100, sorry, close to 200 national TV commercials. So that, and I directed, shorts and music videos and YouTube videos, and anything I could for 10 years of everything, shape and size, just as a freelancer. And that really, really sharpened my skill set because I had to be a Jill of all trades. And with that experience, that eventually led, everything's a build on your past successes. So the pressure and pressure and build and build. And eventually I had the opportunity to make my first feature a few years ago, which is how we met.
Yes, and that's so interesting. I'm a big Stephen Covey fan, and I teach Stephen Covey's concepts. And sharpening the saw is one of the Stephen Covey concepts from Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. So is that one of your Bibles, like it is for me?
Yeah, I haven't read it in a long time, but anytime that I've ever picked it up and casually gone through it again, it's always like, oh yeah, it speaks so much truth. It speaks so much common sense. And it's so clear his viewpoint of the world and how to seek for us to understand and to be understood. All these habits, the 7 habits of highly successful people, I believe it's called. It's a great
Yes.
book. I mean, it's wonderful. Um,
Yes, I've
and
taught a class
I
based on it. Oh, sorry. What were you going to say?
yeah, I think successful people will find that they're automatically doing the things in that book without even realizing or identifying. And so sharpening the saw is like an example of that. I spend probably 15% of my time learning
Mm,
constantly,
mm.
and that's sharpening the saw.
Yes, absolutely. No, it's fantastic. So it's interesting the phrase you used. I had the opportunity to make my first feature. What do you mean by that?
Yeah,
What was the opportunity?
right. So it's really tough as a short filmmaker because you're essentially a frustrated teenager against your parents trying to get out the house and make your first film. That's what it feels like, right? You're essentially a frustrated teenager. And it's like, how do you make that jump from shorts to features? It's such a different beast. They have so much in common, yet they're nothing alike. And how do you make that leap? Um, I didn't know. I didn't have the answer for that. I really didn't know how to mechanically make that leap. And so I was very lucky that there was a competition at the time in Las Vegas called the Lucky Sevens, where they picked 7 local filmmakers and they were going to give them 7 grand each. And you had 7 days to make a movie. And I was like, great, this is going to be my first movie, $7,000. Brilliant. And so I said to the competition organizers, hey, I don't know how to make a movie for $7,000. Is it okay if I raise money? And they were like, yeah, sure, why not? They hadn't really thought through all the parameters of this
Right.
competition. And and so, like 4 months later, I went back to them and I said, hey guys, I've raised 150 grand. Is it respectfully, it's not fair to the other people in the competition. I'm going to drop out and here's your 7 grand back. And that was it.
That's
I was off
great.
to the
So
races.
they kind of got you going on the runway, right?
Yeah,
So
they kind of gave me permission to believe in myself. And then the next key to that was you, because shortly after that, I contacted you, and I think I'd spent all the money that they gave me, or the majority of the money that they gave me, I spent on you to teach me how to, tune my vernacular and raise the rest of the money that I needed. And something that I've always told people that I like, Joanne, is not only do you have good technical information, but you're an amazing cheerleader. And when you're making an independent feature, it's a lonely, miserable process. You go through hell. And to have someone in your corner, like a hype man, right, essentially is what you are. I mean, you're many things, but that's one of the things you are as a hype person. And on those days when I was like, I don't know about this, I don't know if this is gonna work out, I'd call you and you'd be like, no, I 1000% believe in you, you've got this. And even though I'm essentially paying you to tell me that, it makes a difference. It makes a difference because when you
yeah,
feel like, you pitched 50 people and you haven't got the money and you're lying on the couch and you're crying and you've told everyone you're making a movie, but you can't see the path forward, having just someone in your corner makes a very big difference. So I'm forever grateful for you for that and other things.
thank you, Debbie. And it was such a pleasure to work with you. And I really remember those low spots, where because you're a very, very confident person, but what I have witnessed many, many times, once people start the fundraising process and there's, no, 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 if you're actually doing any work, there's a lot of no's, and there were several times when you felt very, 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 very deflated and as if it wasn't
Yeah.
going to work out. But I never saw that. I never saw that it wasn't going to work out. We just had a difference of opinion in those moments.
Well,
When
it's
you were
interesting.
feeling
Yeah, it's a numbers game, right? I pitched, I think, 115 people officially pitched. I mean, I pitched way more than that. Every time I'm in a lift, I'm pitching the driver. Every time I'm at the bank teller, I'm pitching them, right? So, but official pitches, we did about 115, of which 11 people financed the movie. So
which is a very
there
high
would be
percentage, by the way, 10%.
that's great. But
Yeah.
but there were days where I'd go through like, 10, 15 pitches and no, no, no. And when you hear no all day long, it's demoralizing. And so, one of the things everyone knows about this business is you have to have a thick skin. But being a delicate snowflake that I am, we all have our moments.
Yeah. And, one of the things I always remember was that when we first started working together, you were like, I'm going into production September the 1st. And in the end, it ended up being October the 1st, which I would say by making a feature film standards is not that big a shift, right? It wasn't like a year later, which a lot of people do, But one of the things that really worked, I think, with you is that you were like, we're going into production September the 1st. And you had to be pried into October the 1st,
Right. I think
because
I'm a big, big, big believer in momentum.
yes,
Um, when something has momentum, it's just so much easier to pull other people into the mix and to keep that going. When you lose
yes,
momentum, it I sacrifice with that first movie, I sacrificed quality in favor of momentum because I would rather the quality dropped and I got a movie made than you can wait forever for perfect quality and never get something made.
that's right.
I tell people all the time, a good idea today is better than a better idea tomorrow.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so one of the other things I remember from working with you is that there was a conversation one day, and I didn't know, I knew you were in Las Vegas, and that's very central to the movie, but I didn't realize that you had been a bartender, you had owned your own bar and all of that. And you know, we talked about the possibility of bartenders being investors in your film. And that was kind of that was an illuminating moment. Like, wait, there's a whole community of people out there.
Yeah, I was really blessed because I used to, as you said, I used to be a bartender. And of note, I was a flair bartender. I competed 50 times in 5 countries. I got 3 world titles, 2 national titles, something like that, a long time ago, like 20 years ago. But I had, and also built the first ever flair bartending website in the world ever. So I had a really deep history and heritage. I was an ambassador for Smirnoff, for Bailey's, Cuervo. I trained hundreds of bartenders. I was on TV all the time, like MTV, Food Channel. You know, it was almost like a monthly thing that myself and peers were on TV all the time. So, and this was like 20 years ago. So I had a really, really rich history and cultural connection to the flair bartending world. And so when I approached some old friends with the investment opportunity with Move Me No Mountain, it was great because they're bartenders, it's their union, they make a lot of money, they've got to hide it from the tax man a little, and they have excess cash, and they left me from the past. And so that was really a turning point. But what's so interesting about that is because of that community, I got the opportunity to make my second film.
Yes. So before we go into the second film, I just want to finish with Move Me No Mountain. So your first feature, Move Me No Mountain, can you tell us a little bit about that movie?
Sure, Move Me No Mountain is a soft cast indie drama, which if you read the book, that is the hardest selling Hollywood. You know, everyone says, you know, you first film 2 people in a room, horror or sci-fi. And I didn't do that. You know, I did like 40 actors, 40 locations, dogs, scorpions, pigeons, underwater, scuba team,
Underwater shots.
yeah, I had a scuba team, 2 fires. Like it was just so ambitious. I mean, the heart wants what the heart wants, and everyone said to me, "Don't do it, don't do it, don't do it." And I was like, "I'm doing it." So I had to learn the hard way, and I'm glad I did. I'm glad I did because you know, the effort and the ambition was applauded. Um, and I'm proud of the fact that I didn't do a film with 2 people in one room. I mean, I know
Yeah.
my first movie has faults, as all movies do. I feel I was a bit overwhelmed and ill prepared personally, and the buck stops here. But at the end of the day, I'm super proud of its ambition and the crew and cast and what they gave me. So
And
it's
the
available now on Tubi and Amazon Prime and Google Play and YouTube, and it's available in England and Canada and America and I think Mexico. So yeah, go watch Move Me No Mountain. Stars Cat Lily,
Tell
and
everybody the
it's
log line.
basically
What's the log line?
I don't remember the log line.
Well, it's a very Las Vegas story about a successful realtor who, through a tragic loss of her child, becomes so mentally fraught that she leaves her home behind and goes and lives homeless in the streets of Las Vegas. How did I do?
Yeah, yeah,
How did I do?
very good. Could be but good. Now,
And
shorten it.
bad things happen to her. Very bad things happen.
Yeah, you know, it was wonderful to do a movie that spotlights the realities of urban homelessness in America because it's an issue that's near and dear to my heart. Living in Las Vegas, there's a huge dichotomy between the haves and the have-nots, and it's very blatant. Um, so that so, I got a fan. So that really I told you this is live.
Yep.
We're in the wild. So yeah, I'm proud of the movie. But yeah, it was a tough sell. Self-cast indie drama about homelessness. I don't think it gets a harder sell than that. But
Exactly.
you know, today I think we're up to about I think we've had about close to 100,000 people watch the movie. So that's a pretty good number for a small indie. And it's
Very
growing, you know,
nice.
it's out in the marketplace, it's doing this thing, and let's check back on it in 7 years.
And one of the really exciting things for me working with you was that, so I call my business Filmmaker Success, but one day I'm going to change it to second film, because I'm far more interested in somebody's second film than their first, but you can't make your second film until you make your first. And in your case, you went really straight from your first film into your second film. So tell us how that happened.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so I think like 80% of indie filmmakers make one film.
Yes.
And I was desperate to not be in that category. I was like, oh hell no. I can't have gone all these years, the Emmys, hundreds of commercials, the effort of making a first movie, all this journey to end here. It was like not even an option. I was like terrified of that. Like fear is a good motivator. And so I think it was like 4 months after wrapping production on Move Me to Mountain, and at least a good 10 months before the movie was complete in post, that we started production on my second movie, which is a documentary about the world of flair bartending. And it's called Shaken and Stirred, and it comes out in about 2 months' time. We spent about 2 years flying around the country and flying some people in from Europe. We filmed it in Florida, Vegas, California. I was a bit surprised that the movie took me to Miami 3 times. That was something that I didn't expect. That was kind of interesting. And yeah, I'm very excited. It comes out in a couple months. It's the first documentary ever about the hidden world of performance bartending, flair bartending. And we have, because of my connections in the past to that world, we have grassroots following. We have an email list of some 5,000 flair bartenders. We have a social media reach for that movie of something around 60,000 a month. So one of the hardest things with any movie is connecting the movie to the audience. With this film, we realized that we had a ready-made audience that we had access to, and I had an air of legitimacy from coming from that world to be the one to tell the story. It wasn't like, some filmmaker barging into their sacred world. And it was very important to me to not shine a good light on flair bartending or shine a bad light on flair bartending, but just to shine a light on it and be completely impartial. And I have 3 business partner producers on this project, and 2 of them are from that bar world, and they were very concerned about how am I going to show this? How am I going to portray this? What kind of light am I going to put it in? And it was always really, really important for me from day one to say, okay, this film is going to be in the words of the people that were there and did it. That's it. I'm just kind of rearranging what order they say things, but it's their story. It's not mine to come in and put my opinion on it. So it's a very impartial fly on the wall, cinema verite look at the hidden world of flair bartending.
And, so as a fundraiser, I go back to when we were working on Move Me to Mountain and realized, wait a minute, you're part of this community. You're part of this very important part of this community of flair bartenders. And they were the ones, I believe, who put in the last pieces of money into Move Me to Mountain and then said, let's go with the documentary. When you're done, let's go. And they put the money in. Is that correct? Am I telling the story properly?
And essentially I pitched 112-ish people for Move Me to Mountain, and 11 financed the movie. Was Shaken and Stirred. I pitched 3 people, and I think it's roughly around the same. 11 people have funded the movie. So what a difference, right? From like 112 to 3.
Yes.
And I think with the next movie, that's being amplified and even more. I haven't pitched anyone, like officially pitched the next movie, and already people are giving me money for it.
Yes, and I think that there are 2 things that I'm hearing at the same time, which you said, well, when I made Move Me No Mountain, which was about homelessness in Las Vegas, that's about the hardest pitch you possibly could have. But then you're sort of like, wait, I'm a flair bartender, I'm an expert, I have a community, there's a story that hasn't been told, and there's a built-in audience before you even make the film. There's a built-in audience for the film, and watching you go through that kind of, oh, wait a minute. And so to me, what I think is really exciting is when a filmmaker makes that connection of, well, there's an audience and I want to provide something for that audience. Do you think that's like a different approach as well?
Yeah, it's really interesting because I feel like, I will have made 3 movies in roughly 3, 4 years. Each one of them has been financed differently. Each one of them will have been marketed differently, and each one of them will have found their audience in a different way. And so it's really been a really interesting holistic journey of seeing all the different approaches. But yeah, like you said, there's a couple of things happening there. One thing my manager is most excited about is the fact that my work is getting more and more commercial. Right? Without trying, without particularly trying. But that's a good thing because often there'll be some indie filmmaker who has a festival darling smash hit, right? And it'll be some indie drama that does well at festivals but nowhere else. And then 5 years on, they're still making the same kind of film. And so my manager is ecstatic that I'm not that person, that I'm growing craft. But the interesting thing about finding your audience, so the first film just made what the heart wanted, then tried to find the audience. Very difficult. The second film, we're like, oh, the audience, let's make the movie for them. Okay. And then the third film, Scissor Mouth, which is a horror, which we're shooting in May next year. Was really interesting because we went a completely different approach. While we were learning how to do digital granular marketing for Move Me No Mountain, because a lot of the emphasis was on us to push that project. While we were learning that, we learned a lot of really, really helpful skills. And one of the things we learned how to do is to do a kind of like an exploratory campaign to find out if there's demand for a film. And what we did is we created the logline for Scissor Mouth, we created the key art for Scissor Mouth, and then we put together a Facebook page with just those 2 items. Then we put some money into advertising that on Facebook. And the great thing about Meta Tools is you can really define your audience. So we said, okay, 18 and up, lives in America, men and women, English speaking only, fans of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and fans of Blumhouse movies. We spent $300. We got 3,000 followers in a couple days.
Wow.
Okay. So that's really interesting because like on Facebook, right, the holy grail of metrics is, well, if you do under 50 cents cost per like, you considered that's pretty good, right? So with Moving a Mountain, we're at about 34 cents cost per like for people to like our page. And that's considered good. The holy grail is considered 12, 13 cents cost per like. With Scissor Mouth, we were getting 10 cents cost per like, which was telling us with this specific audience, they want to see what they potentially believe this movie is going to be. Okay, so that's telling us that there's an audience for it, and it only costs us 10 cents a person to acquire. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put $10,000 into Facebook, change that 300 followers into 100,000 followers, and then we're going to go to the ready-made 100,000 strong audience, and we're going to say, okay, guys, let's crowd equity this with you as the fans, because you want to see this movie get made. So how about you finance it? And with 100,000 followers, all we have to do is get a minimum of 2% at an average of $500 a piece, which is the average for crowd equity, not crowdfunding, which is 2 separate subjects. So we only need to get 2% of that 100,000 to get the first million. So there's a clear pathway here for us to not only get money, but to get the money from its audience so that they feel part of the project, they're willing to see it, and you've got, 20,000 people, grassroots, waiting to see this movie. You would put 500, $10, 20, whatever it is into it. So it's a very different approach of, rather than saying, I'm going to make a movie, let's find the audience, we're like, hey, this is what we want to make. Let the public tell us if they want to see it. And with that validation, we have the confidence to move forward.
That's fantastic. And there are a couple of things I want to ask you about that I haven't had anybody else to ask. So this is great. And thanks for the whole thing about Scissor Mouth. And people can see that the Facebook page, and you get some more likes. So you talked about having a manager and how thrilled your manager is with the trajectory of your work. How long have you
Yeah.
had a manager? How come you have a manager? How does that work? What's that all about?
Okay, it's interesting. Um, I laughed because about a year ago, my manager called me up and he said, "Oh, I had a dream that we were waiting in this agent's office and it was really fancy and I said to her, hold on a second, I'm paying you 10% for you to tell me your dreams instead of realizing mine. What what's going on here?"
That's a
Um,
hell of a line, Debbie.
Seriously. So, okay. So I've had my manager. We're going on for our third year now. I got my manager, I think, roughly when I met you, I think, roughly.
Huh.
So I met you through Clubhouse, which for those of you who don't know is an audio
Oh,
drop-in app.
yeah.
And at the time of the pandemic, obviously everyone was at home. And so it was an amazing resource at that time to meet other professionals. For some reason, a lot of film community gravitated there. And it was amazing. I got to meet you and tons of other people. And in fact, there's about 20 people or so that I met on Clubhouse that worked on my first movie. And I
Wow.
also met my manager in one of those rooms where you like get to ask a manager a question. And I
Mm.
think at the time I said to him, "Hey, listen, I've 4 Emmys, Nevada Woman Filmmaker of the Year, making my first feature, hundreds of TV commercials. My question is, when's the right time to get a manager?" And he was like, "Now, now." And so, but at the beginning of that relationship, he said to me, "Look, you're the equivalent of a musician in development, an artist in
Uh-huh.
development, right?"
Uh-huh.
He recognized 10 years ago, sorry, 2 years ago, he's not going to make much money off me at this stage, but he's going to put time and effort to grow me as an artist over the next few years. So he's had to put in a lot of skin in the game as a manager, but
Mm.
that's because he believes in me as an artist. And it's
Mm-hmm.
really interesting because while we are going through the pandemic and then the strike, and I got to give him credit. He called out the strike like 10 months before it happened. He said to me,
Mm.
"This is coming."
Mm.
And something else he said during the strike, he said he believes that when the strike is over, there's going to be a crop of filmmakers that emerge from it.
Mm.
And those filmmakers that emerge from this strike and this pandemic will be the predominant filmmakers in 10 years' time. And he's
Mm.
always seen me as one of those people in that
Mm-hmm.
bracket. Time will tell. But yeah, so I've had a manager going on 3 years. I pay him 10% of anything that he brings to me.
Mm.
Um, Obviously, when we get onto bigger projects like Scissor Mouth and stuff, he might not necessarily have initiated that project, but you still get 10% of it because
Mm.
he's held my
Okay.
hand in the process. He was the one that
Okay.
said, like a year ago when I said, "Hey, I've got 10 ideas," and I pitched them all to him. He's like, "Right, Scissor Mouth, that's the one. That's the next one." So yeah, it's a strange relationship though, because I feel like sometimes it's more like a therapist. It's not like so the idea of a manager is they manage your career and you give them 10% of what they bring you. The idea of an agent is you just give them 10% of what they brought you, whereas with the manager, you're supposed to give 10% of everything. Okay.
Oh,
So
I see.
so it feels like it's a weird relationship, man. I think anyone with a manager is a weird relationship because I think people think that a manager is gonna do this, do that, open doors, do the work for you. And it's really not that. It's you go do the work
Mm.
yourself, but they're just kind
Mm.
of there as your hype man in the same way that you are, that when you're
Mm.
in your lowest moments, they're like, "Oh, I
Mm.
believe in you. You've got this." So I think people think if I get a manager that will open doors and do things for me, and that's not my experience. My experience is you have someone else in your corner who is just gonna keep you straight.
Wow, thanks for that, Debbie. I really appreciate that you talked about that because a lot of people are very interested in getting a manager and getting an agent. And I always
Don't
just
don't be
say,
in any
well,
rush. Don't be in any rush
no.
for manage. Don't be in any rush for. I mean, look, an agent is great because they can get you work and you then pay them for that work. So if there is an agent who is in your wheelhouse in terms of that's the kind of work they get and that's the kind of work you're looking for, fantastic. But don't be in any hurry to get a manager. Um, it's you know, it's not going to suddenly change the game. It's just gonna you can have more support, but you're gonna have to pay for that support as well.
Yes, yes, for
So
sure, for sure. And then my other question is going back to the documentary, the Flair bartending documentary. So we just saw each other. It was so cool, you know, to actually
yeah,
see you in person and
total
get to give you a
surprise.
hug and you're like, oh, you're real, you're real. That was great. So tell us a little bit about why you made the decision to get a booth at NatP, what you did, what you got out of it. Tell us a little bit about that because you're the only person I know who's ever done that.
Okay, cool.
Is it
So
cold where you are? Is it cold
freezing,
where you are? It looks so
freezing,
beautifully sunny.
freezing, freezing.
Freezing.
There was frost on the ground this morning. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm in the desert, so
Yeah,
it's sunny in the day, cold at night.
yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, for those of you who don't know, NATP stands for, I believe, National Association of Television Producers, and
Programming
it's held once a year.
executives. Programming
Oh, programming is
executives. Yeah.
okay. So essentially, it's a meet for the industry for television executives to predominantly meet with distributors. And we figured that with this movie, with our documentary, what if we skipped the distributor and went straight to networks who could purchase the film? So we decided to go to NatP a few months ago in January in Miami, and it was a very, very expensive endeavor. It cost, I think the final price tag was like 17 grand. So it was a really expensive roll of the dice because we had a booth, we had a bar, we had flair bartenders behind the bar flipping bottles with a 50-inch screen behind them of the clip of the movie, reel of the movie, and we gave away 1,000 free drinks, non-alcoholic drinks to everyone at the convention. So we made a lot of friends. We made a big splash and made a big impression. And so it was really, really good. It was really cool. We came away with tons of contacts, and look, this is a relationship business.
Mm-hmm,
So even
mm-hmm.
if something doesn't, you know, click together this time round, it doesn't mean it's not going to click next time round if you've built that relationship. So you know, maybe we only get you know, a handful of deals out of this experience, but I've got relationships that are going to last 10, 20, 30 years when I see someone from there that I see in Cannes or something. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen you since NatP. How are you? And that even happened at NatP, right? There were people there that I'd met at AFM a year and a half ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like a build, right? It's just building and building. And as long as you're a nice person and genuine, you meet the same people on the way up as you do on the way down. So excuse me. So yeah, we went there, we gave away 1,000 free drinks. After that, we followed up with meetings with people that we'd met. There's a oh my gosh, there's so many names of distributors that I can't remember. There's a distributor that or not a distributor, a network that has 700 fast channels, and they made an
Oh.
offer on the movie. There's a couple other networks who were like, well, we need to see the finished thing because at that point we only had rough cut and we polished up 30 minutes of it
Mm-hmm,
for the TV
mm-hmm.
behind us, but the whole movie was so they're just waiting on us now to finish it up. We got picture lock like on Sunday last week.
Yay.
So yay, so now we've got till May 1st, and all that's left is color, VFX, titles, credits. Think, oh, and obviously sound, but that's not my job. So, so yeah. So
That's
it's all
great.
coming together, and yeah,
With
next movie is gonna come out. I'm very excited.
when you said the network that has the 400 fast channels, is that
Yeah,
a
700.
separate is that a separate is that an ancillary distribution right, or is that within the traditional distribution windows, or is it separate?
They're a network, so it's skipping the distributor and going straight to the network.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're called national, but they have all the channels on Roku. Like most of those Roku channels are them.
I see. Yes, yes,
It's
yes.
incredible. You know what? This will be interesting to your to your peeps. So at NAPI, there was a lot of religious content, and I
Oh.
was talking to one exhibitor about why is religious content exploded, and they said,
Uh-huh.
and this is what I thought was so interesting. They said it's become less about appealing to as many people as possible, and it's become more about offending as few people as possible.
That's great.
Now that's that was one person's an exhibitor in in the faith category, but it's an
Mm.
interesting take on why faith categories exploded so much.
Yeah, it really is. I just was on a meeting before this talking about how faith-based films are crossing into the mainstream in a very new way that hasn't existed in the past. They've been around for. I met a producer of Christian films in Beverly Hills maybe 20 years ago, and he'd been making films for 30 years, and I was like, really? I don't know about that. And now it's like everybody knows about it. We've come to the last 10 minutes. I just want to make sure if anybody has a question, would like to ask a question. I see Laurie D there. I'm sure she has something she wants to ask.
Hey, hi there. I don't know if I have a question because I have had the pleasure of meeting you and talking to you personally. So I'm a big fan and I love your work, what you've done already. Can't wait to see all the rest. And Joanne, I love you. So
Thank
you're
you,
so
Laurie.
helpful. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to the fourth one, whatever that will be.
Oh, the
I'm
fourth
like,
one.
let's
That's
just
good. That's good. Laurie, I'm going to ask a question on your behalf. I'm going to
Oh,
ask Debbie a question on your behalf. What do I need to do to get my first feature made? Is that a good question, Laurie?
yes, it is.
That
Yes.
that is a good question. Right. Okay, so obviously anything I say is purely from my paradigm as an independent filmmaker. And I always tell this with everyone, anything I say, take with a pinch of salt because it's purely my experience, right? So it's all gonna be based on that. Um, Similarly, results may vary. No two movies are made the same way. The path to every movie is a little different and unique. And however, okay, if you're trying to struggle to get from that jump from your first short to your first feature, it all starts with the screenplay. I know we've all heard that before, and I know it's a little boring, but for those of you who don't know, the Blacklist is a website where you can post your screenplay, and industry members can download your screenplay and check it out. And it costs like 30 bucks a month to host your screenplay there. Now, you can also pay 100 bucks a month to get your screenplay to get coverage from an industry member through the Blacklist, and they'll give you a score and they'll give you some coverage, and that'll appear for the public to see. What a lot of people don't realize is that generally speaking, movies on there that score an 8 out of 10 usually get made. And if you Google a list of the movies that got made from the blacklist, you'll fall off your chair at how many you know of them. Okay. So right now, I think the first draft of Scissor Mouth got a 6 out of 10 on the blacklist, which is good. It's encouraging. It means it's better than 60% of the crap out there. But it's not good enough, right? And that's why I'm on this writing retreat, polishing and refining. And I've been in a I got into an all-female writers boot camp over Christmas for a couple months, and so retooled the screenplay. And I'm really excited because next week we're going to resubmit it to the blacklist and hopefully get that up to an 8. Okay, now why am I going on about all this? Is because the more bulletproof your screenplay is, the more chances you have getting it made, of it being successful, of all these things. But with all that being said, with your first movie, there's a 9 out of 10 chance that anyone that invests in it isn't investing because of the screenplay. They're investing because of you, because they believe in you. And so I tell people, look, raising money isn't hard. The hard thing is making money. Okay. And I think people think that raising money is the difficult thing. And it's like, no, the hard thing is making money. Because if you can make money, people give you money hand over fist. right? And the key to making that money is the screenplay. If the screenplay, the more bulletproof the screenplay can be, the more set you are. So that would be my advice. Like, hire Joanne, work on the screenplay, and believe in yourself.
Thank you so much. Thanks for letting me ask
Great.
your question, Laurie D. And so good to see you. So good to see you. Does anybody? Oh, Manos. He's been having internet problems, so I hope you're able to get to ask your question. Go ahead, Manos.
Hey,
Hey.
how are you?
I'm
Very well, thank you. Where are you calling from, Manos?
I'm from Bangladesh.
Bangladesh. Oh my gosh,
yeah.
that's so exciting.
I'm following last at least last 5 years. Though we talk little, I'm also an independent short filmmaker right now. So and I'm very happy to hear with always Joanne, and it's awesome. Many people come there. I learned many things from senior filmmakers. So right now my question is like to Debbie is like move me no mountain about. I want to know about how much money you invested in the film, and my important question is, and how much money you got from the film, so from movie especially. So my concern is also like that if someone invest me, so I have to sometimes it is very important to return back to his money. So without sometimes profit is not important, but important is like to return back the amount of value. This is an important thing. So that's why I'm asking this question.
Manos, before Debbie answers, I just want to tell you something and tell filmmakers something in general. It's not considered polite to ask people the question you just asked. And so when I have my clients and other filmmakers on the interview, I'm always very sure that we will talk in general in numbers. And it's up to a filmmaker if they want to talk about the numbers, but I would say that it's in polite filmmaking society, that is not a question to ask. And I'm not mad at you, Manos. I'm just saying that's the case. And so when you get a chance to speak to a filmmaker who has been able to make a feature film and has got investors, ask the question a little bit more obliquely, a little bit more, not as direct, like how much did you spend, how much did you make? That's not really a fair question. Anyway, over to you, Debbie.
Yeah, Manas, thank you for the question. It's strange because before I started making movies, I could never understand why filmmakers were so cagey about the numbers. Why weren't they open? Why weren't they honest? And now I realize I know the answer. And the answer is this. If a filmmaker made a shit ton of money, they don't want you to know. And if they lost money, they don't want you to know. So that being said, I can get to the nitty gritty because I have no shame. Right. So for those and my manager will hit me over the head because he's like, never talk about the numbers, never talk about the numbers. And generally I wouldn't in an open forum, but because this is a filmmaker group, I'm happy to share some nitty gritty with you. So Move Me No Mountain was made for $100,000. And then we spent an additional or raised an additional $50,000 for marketing. Okay, so the total price tag was $150,000. We've had, the movie's been out for about a year. So we've had 3/4 of money back, and we have made less than 10% of our money back in the first year. Okay, so if we continue on that trajectory, we are likely to make our money back in less than 10 years. Now, there is a caveat to that. As a filmmaker making more films and continuing to make more films, it's reasonable to assume that your first film may get a bump when your second movie comes out, and likewise with the next movie, you know? If my next movie is a big hit, it's a $2.5 million movie, and let's just say for shits and giggles that it makes $10 million, then I'm sure Move Me No Mountain will start creeping up to the $10,000 a quarter kind of number, right? So like I said before, every success builds on the last success. Now, when I was getting investment for my first feature for Move Me No Mountain, or anytime I'm speaking to people about money, I'm always extremely cognizant of the fact that I give them 3 warnings, one at the beginning of the conversation, one in the middle of the conversation, and one at the end of the conversation, to let them know that investing in films is a risky business. And while we have everything in place to return your initial investment, right, I don't have a crystal ball. And I and my team will do everything within our power to construct this, to make this successful. But at the end of the day, this making films is a risky business. And so I make sure that they're blatantly aware. And I also make sure that, hey, if they didn't make this money back, are they going to lose their home? Because if that's the case, then I don't want them as an investor, because I can't have it on my soul. So the only people I get as investors are people that can afford, I mean, no one can afford to lose money, but if they lost the money, it's not going to adversely affect their lifestyle. And I think that's the key. So I am disappointed with the amount of money that we've made back from Move Me No Mountain. But that being said, and also keep in mind that about 80,000 people have watched the movie. Now, here's something they don't tell you, okay? Here's something really important to consider and think about with money and fast channels, free ad-supported TV, or AVOD, as it's called. On AVOD, say if you make 10 cents a play for your movie and it costs you $100,000 to make a movie, that means you got to get 1 million people to watch your movie. How are you going to do that? That's the question. Like I said, raising money isn't hard, making money is hard. So the question always becomes, how do you connect your project with your audience? And like I said earlier, each one of my first 3 films has been constructed, financed, eventually distributed, and marketed in 3 completely different ways, as we constantly sharpen our saw on that goal of how do we connect this story with the audience.
Thank you so much, Debbie. And I believe it's the case, I don't think you've actually told me this, but I believe it's the case that some of your investors in your first film came back for your second. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like I said, people invest because they believe in you, okay?
Yeah.
Because they believe in you. That's really important to remember. Like one of my investors said to me, hey, I would much rather give you $5,000 and see where it turns out over the next 2 years, and maybe go to a premiere and have the excitement and root for you all along, than put it on some Bitcoin stock that I lose in a weekend. You know, because
That's right.
their value of experience is entirely different, but yet the money is the same. So, you know, and we couldn't, it kind of verges on a vanity investor. A vanity investor is someone that puts the money in just because they want to be involved with the project, not because they're trying to make money. They might, for example, a vanity investor will be like, hey, I'll give you X amount, but I want a little walk-on cameo. That's a vanity investor. Or I'll give you X amount, but you know, I want me and my family and all my kids and everyone to be at the red carpet, and we don't want to pay. And it's like, sure. You know, so but I don't think anyone with my first film really honestly put money in thinking I'm going to be rich from this. And there was never any promise of that.
Well, thank you so much, Debbie. Thanks everybody for showing up today. And thanks, Debbie, so much for letting us disturb your lockdown writer's retreat.
I got to get back in there. I got to get back into my room and finish writing.
Yeah, you only have a few hours left, so make it work. But thank you so much. And it's always such a pleasure to hang out with you and hear how fabulously you're doing. So until next time, 2 weeks from today, thanks everybody for coming to this edition of the Filmmaker's Life. Bye.
Thank you, Joanne. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.